Hello, true crimeers. This is the case of Joann Albanese. Viewer discretion is advised. Joann Albanese was born on January 20th, 1956. She was one of three kids. She also had two sisters. And she was actually born and raised in France. But eventually, she would find her way to the States. Now, at the time of this case, Joann is 39 years old, and she is the mother to two daughters. Her daughters were from a previous marriage, which that marriage ended amicably. Joann had been single for some time, and she kind of was always sort of out there looking for Mr. Right. And she would always go to the gym, and that's eventually where she would be introduced to a man named John Edwards. John was a fitness instructor, and this is all in Las Vegas, Nevada. And the two of them quickly hit it off, and eventually they would start dating, and Joann would fall for him. And at first, everything was going great. They seemed happy, and their relationship seemed really normal. But that soon began to change. John became emotionally, verbally kind of abusive towards Joann, and he was a mooch. He lived off of her earnings. He wasn't making any money anymore. He was just a freeloader. Joann's friends would also notice that John was very quick to become enraged. He got mad very, very fast. And towards Joann, at least, he was very controlling, even just publicly. He was very manipulative and controlled everything she did. On August 19th, 1995, Joann went to work like normal. Her shift was over at 4:30 p.m. Her coworker said goodbye. She walked down the hall, turned the corner, left the building, and her coworkers would never see her again. That same day, Joann's daughters were out somewhere with their biological father, and later that afternoon, they were dropped back off at Joann's house. When the daughters entered the home, Joann wasn't there. Not totally unusual. I mean, she did have somewhat of a social life, so they didn't really think anything of it. Eventually, they would enter their mom's bedroom, and they found her purse and all of her jewelry that she would normally put on to go out was still laid out on her dresser. And that's when concern kicked in. That's when Joann's family would learn very quickly that Joann was actually planning on leaving John. She told people that the day that she actually ended up disappearing, she had told people that was the day she was going to be ending the relationship with John Edwards. And that also happens to be the day that was the last time anyone ever saw her. 4 days later, Joann's vehicle is found abandoned just outside of Prescott, Arizona. Everything in her car was there, like nothing, there was no sign of foul play in the car. I mean, it was abandoned in a very particular place where it was clearly someone was trying to hide the car. But nothing out of the ordinary outside of that was found. Like there's no blood or anything like that in the ar. They would also learn quickly that John's truck was still parked outside of Joann's house. But when they knocked on the door, he wasn't at Joann's house. Eventually, they found out where this John Edwards lived because, they wanted to just question him. He's the boyfriend that they found out she's trying to leave. They found out he's abusive, so they want to talk to him because, maybe he did something to her. So they find his address, and they're actually able to gain entry to his home. And when they're searching his home, he wasn't there, but they found a wallet, and the wallet was wrapped up in duct tape. And when they opened up the wallet, they found a couple of identification cards in there, but none of them were for a man named John Edwards. They were for a man named John Addis. And more alarmingly, they discovered that John Addis was a former Alaskan state trooper. In the 70s and the early 80s, John Addis was a young detective who actually would be someone who trained other officers in detective work and forensic work. He was, at that time, very gifted, very talented. He had a wife. His first wife was named Jody, and they would later find out that Jody tried to leave him because John Addis was incredibly physically abusive towards her. One day, she tried to escape him by jumping out of the moving car she was in with him. He stops the car, chases her down, and yanks her back into the car. She was finally able to escape, and she got a divorce from him. John finds another woman, and he marries her. And then the cycle continued. He was abusive towards her as well. They got divorced. Then he got married a third time. He was abusive towards his third wife as well. He quit his job as the state trooper. He was then living off of his third wife's money until they separated. Then John kidnapped his 4 kids from his first marriage, and he brought them all the way to Michigan. He was finally captured, and the kids were all reunited with their mom. Unbelievably, he only served 1 year in prison for this. For the next 10 years or so, John's bouncing around all over the country. He's back in Alaska, he's going to Michigan, he's going to all other places until he finally finds his way in Las Vegas, Nevada. John, at that point, had been changing his identity left and right. He was working as a gym instructor at one point. He pretended to be a novelist, a screenwriter, just lying his way through the country. And then when he was basically working as a gym instructor, that's when he met Joann. And so now they're looking for John, because when they got to his house and found his ID, he wasn't there. He was at that point already long gone. I think he realized that he was about to be caught because, of Joann's very sudden disappearance. And he went on the run, and he was on the run for a little bit of time. 3 years after Joann disappeared, in 1998, about a mile away from where Joann's car was found, there were some hunters walking through this, heavily dense area, and they stumbled across a human skeleton just sort of lying in a field covered with tall grass and weeds. When police were notified, they began to wonder if this was Joann, and after some dental records and other forensic tools, they discovered that these, in fact, were the remains of Joann. And now there is an arrest warrant for John Addis for murder. His case airs on America's Most Wanted, and I think at one point it aired on Unsolved Mysteries. And after a re-airing, 11 years after John Addis was last seen and when Joann disappeared, he was finally found down south in Mexico. He had found another girlfriend, and they had 2 kids together in Mexico. They discovered that his new girlfriend and John had disappeared back in 1997. And they eventually were able to track down John and his girlfriend's whereabouts. They didn't find them until 2006. They entered the home where they believed that they had been seen or they were staying, and they found more bodies. The girlfriend, named Laura, and the 2 kids were dead. They had died from carbon monoxide poisoning. A couple of days later, in Guatemala City, another body was found. This individual was a male, and it appeared he had died from some sort of heart attack. And through fingerprints, they were able to identify this man as John Addis. He was dead. John had murdered Joann. Then it's believed he killed his new girlfriend from Mexico and their 2 kids. At least 3 people died at his hands. Possibly more. It's very possible he may have done this to other women. And it sounds like his first couple of wives were very, very lucky to get away with their lives. You would have liked to have seen him been arrested and charged with these murders and, gone to trial and faced the consequences, but unfortunately that was not going to be the reality. Sometimes these stories end this way. But there is some solace in the fact that John Addis is dead. This guy's a violent piece of shit. He's a murderer, he's an abuser, he's a pathological liar, and so he is exactly where he should be, dead. And the case is closed. But unfortunately, Joann and her family didn't really get justice. Not at all. None of his victims got justice. Not legal justice, at least. But in some way, you can consider his death, a form of justice, right? And John Addis is no longer out there in the world, and he can no longer hurt anyone ever again. But that is it for this case. True crime, a Rooney, a Dooney, a Dingleberry Dongs. I hope you found it interesting. As usual, hello, my name is Mike. If you are new to this channel, I tell true crime stories, obviously. I tell many of them a week. So please subscribe, give this video a like, leave a comment, share the video if you like, and hit the bell so you're notified of when I post new videos. And yeah, I also tell short form true crime stories over on TikTok. The link to my TikTok is in the link tree, which is in the description of this video below. I think it's also in my profile here on YouTube. So feel free to check that out and follow that page if you want to. I do post compilation videos once a month from all the videos I make in my TikTok, so they'll be over here at some point. Also in that link tree below, you'll find my case list. You can actually view it. If there's a name that you do not see on that list that you would like me to cover, just send me a really quick email. My email is in my bio or in the description down below. Just send me the name of the case, where it happened, when it happened, and I'll add that name to my list. If you are a direct loved one to a victim whose case has not been solved yet, or they're a missing person, please let me know in the email. That way I can put that kind of case to the top, because that's, you know, you're a direct connection to that case. Otherwise, I pick my cases at random just to be fair, so. But at any rate, that is it for this video. And so until the next case, true crimerers, ta-ta for now. Come on, Vogue. No. No.